Several people have asked me about the Payne Stewart Learjet crash. Payne Stewart was in a Lear 35. I believe it was manufactured in 1976. I believe the crash happened in 1999. So it was a 25-year-old airplane. Now, what have I said about 25-year-old airplanes? What have I said? Anytime you're in a jet, it's a two-pilot jet or one-pilot jet, and you're above 25,000 feet, you have to wear the quick donning oxygen mask around your neck. You don't wear it on your face, you just got it around your neck. So you just have to go here. Anytime you're above 25,000 feet, that's an FAA requirement. Part of your pre-flight check when you get in the airplane is you take that mask and you take a sanitary wipe and you wipe it, you put it on your face, you go psh, and you make sure there's oxygen flowing. Then you wipe it off and you put it back. That's part of your pre-flight check. A lot of people get in there, they just reach over there, psh, here's the oxygen, they don't mess with it, they don't check it. You gotta check that the bottle's in the green, outside, inside, and you gotta make sure that there's oxygen flowing. So, that's part of your pre-flight check. Anytime you're above 25,000 feet, one pilot per FAA regulations must have the mask hanging around his neck, hanging right here. It's cumbersome. It's not fun to fly with it there. You can't see your iPad. You can't see your checklist. But that's the FAA rule, and it's there for a very good reason. Now, the emergency procedure in a citation jet, if you're at 40,000 feet, 35,000 feet, and you get a red cabin pressure light. One day, we were in the citation jet, and we took off out of, let's say, Washington State, D.C. area. And we were heading to an island not far from Florida, Bahamas. We had a man and a wife and 3 kids in that airplane. We were over the ocean. And you know what happened? Red cabin altitude light. Mask on. Immediately, you put the mask on. The captain and the co-pilot put their mask on before you do anything. The reason is because if you lose cabin pressure and you're at 40,000 feet and it's negative 40 degrees outside, number one, you're either going to freeze. Number two, you're not going to be able to breathe. Number four, you're going to breathe cold air that's going to freeze your lungs and you're going to die quick. So the procedure is, if the cabin light, red cabin light comes on, you don't do anything else, but you put that oxygen mask on and you click 100% oxygen. Then the procedure is emergency descent. This is all done in like 10 seconds. This is not something you say, well, let's put the mask on and what do you think we should do? I don't know, what do you think No, you put the mask on, power lever back, pitch over, I think 35%, speed brakes out, and you start an emergency descent. Then you get on the radio and you say, Mayday, 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 citation 1234, cabin depressurization, emergency descent, vacating flight level 410 to maintain 5,000 feet. And you do this, you let them know. During an emergency, you can break any rule necessary to meet that emergency. And over the ocean out there, is there some traffic? Yeah. But to meet that emergency, that's why you get on that radio. First you get the mask on, then you get the heading down, then you call the Mayday. And when you call the Mayday, that gets their attention and they clear the area. Because you got to get down to 15,000 feet where you can breathe. So that's what we did. And it was no fun. It didn't do my ear any good. I got kind of tendonitis in my ear from that. So that's the procedure. Now, that 1976 Learjet on the checklist, that was not the procedure. The procedure was to troubleshoot it. And they changed that. The FAA changed the checklist for that Lear because that's no time to be troubleshooting stuff. You got to get that plane down. So what happened to Payne Stewart and everybody in that airplane? They lost pressurization, and the plane is made, if it gets around 8, this is what happens. The engines, the jet engines, are pumping air from the engines into the cabin. And in the back of the cabin, the very back, there's 2 valves. They're regulating that air that's getting pumped into the cabin. So if you didn't have these valves opening, it would just keep pumping air, pumping air, pumping air. But the valves are doing this. Before you take off, let's say you're going to Memphis, Tennessee, and you take off out of Orlando, Florida. Well, the elevation in Orlando, Florida is probably 10 feet. The elevation in Memphis, Tennessee is like 250. So you put 250 plus 200 is 450 in your pressurization window, so the plane knows how to pressurize and depressurize. When you take off, the plane does not pressurize until you pass 3,500 feet. Why? Because if you take off and have to come back and land, well then the plane doesn't have to worry about depressurizing itself. So it doesn't even start building pressure, and you don't really need any pressurization until you get past 12, 15,000 foot. So when you take off, the bleed air from the jet engines is being pumped into the airplane, and in the back you got the 2 valves that's keeping the cabin at 7,000, 8,000 foot, even when you're at 40,000 foot. That way you can breathe. That's how that system works. Now, that airplane I told you about, we did an emergency descent. We declared an emergency, and we flew back, I think, to Palm Springs, Florida. Anyway, we went back. We want to get on the ground. We got on the ground, and we called the company, and they said, well, take it over there to the Cessna Center in Orlando. Well, we didn't really want to fly it. They said, well, just take it over there and fly 10,000 foot over there. That way you won't have to worry about pressurization. And true, it wasn't that far. It's like 20-minute flight. So we get the passengers out. I had to go and explain to them what happened and be apologetic and smooth things over. Now, did we have a cabin altitude pressure leak? Yeah. Was it catastrophic? No. Could it have been catastrophic? Yes. Payne Stewart's was catastrophic. The windows were iced up in the plane. They sent some F-18s up flying beside him. They couldn't even see in the airplane because the windows were iced up. Because it was basically negative 40 degrees inside the airplane instantly, and everybody froze. And the plane just flew until it ran out of gas. One engine ran out of gas, and once one engine runs out of gas, it's gonna slow down a little bit and turn a little bit, and that's gonna kick the autopilot off, and then it just flew into the ground. That's what happened to the Payne Stewart crash. They had a catastrophic cabin failure. Could the plane have been saved? And we don't know that one of those masks didn't have the mask around their neck. It could have been so catastrophic. They didn't have time to do that. But that's the reason for that. So one pilot can go right here, have oxygen, put it on the other pilot, then descend down. That's the reason for that. I know because I did it, and it was not fun, and right now my ear is going because of that very situation. So we had to get the passengers on the other plane, then we took the plane to the Orlando Cessna Center. It is a massive center. They probably had 50, 75, 100 Citation jets everywhere, from the Citation 1 to the Citation 10. It was Citation Mecca. I loved it. I just walked around looking. You see planes all over the ramp. Nice pilot lounge. Treat you like a king when you go there. Treated the pilots like a king. So we get there. We take the plane there. Go in the hangar. There's more Citations in parts everywhere. It turns out that particular plane we were in had been in the shop 19 times for the same problem. 19 times for the same problem. So we took the plane there, and we had to sit with the plane until our week is up. What would happen would be on Tuesday, they would email me where I'm going. I would go to the airport. I ain't got a ticket. I would have my known flight crew member badge and just walk right through, walk all the way to the gate. I'd walk to the gate, show them my badge, and say, I should have a ticket for this flight. They say, yeah, you got a ticket for the flight. So then I would fly to the plane, meet the other pilot at the plane. We would fly the plane a week. And then after a week, we would fly home and 2 more people came. So we had to take the plane to the Cessna Citation Center in Orlando. We had to sit with it the rest of our duty week. The next week, we got assigned to the same plane. So we had to go to Orlando, and the mechanics would look at it, and they would look at it, and they say, okay, let's go test fly it. So every day for an hour and a half, we had to take it up and test fly it with the pressurization messed up for that whole week. And that, I think that plane was there for 3 weeks before they finally fixed it. You say, who's paying for that? That particular plane was on a Cessna repair program. I think it's either $1,000 a month or $1,000 a week, unlimited maintenance. Now, that's not the parts in the engine. Both of the engines are on a program. Every hour you fly it, if you fly 1 hour, you mail Cessna a check. $350 for this engine, $350 for that engine. Every month, at the end of the month, you just mail them a check. Most of those engines are good for 5,000 hours. So anything happens during the engine during that time, they fix it. When the engine gets 5,000 hours, you've been paying for the engine here and there all along. It's probably $1 million engine. So when you get to 5,000 hours, they just bring you an engine and slap it on there, or you fly down there and they put a new engine on there. It's a lot of money. It's crazy money. So they take it down there to Cessna and just throw money at it. Just throw money at it. Just throw. 19 times that particular plane has been there for the same problem. So that's the way you pressurize an airplane. The engines take bleed air, they pump it into the fuselage, and then there's 2 valves in the back that keep it even whatever you set. Now you can set 5,000 foot, you can set 7,000 foot. I believe it's set at a generic altitude for 7,500 foot. So as you climb, those valves and that pressurization system keeps the cabin 7,500 foot. Now, if it reaches 10,000 foot, you get a big light, the mast drops down, but you're gonna get some warnings before it gets there. When it gets 1,000 foot below, you're gonna get some warnings. So you have time to make a decision to get to a lower altitude and go somewhere to get it repaired. If it's catastrophic, the window fails or the door fails or something like that, and you just lose it quick, you put the mask on, you go down quick, and you just try to save yourself. I asked the mechanic about that plane. He says, look, every single plane, it doesn't matter if it's a brand new plane, it's got pressure leaks. I said, are you kidding me? He goes, yeah, no airplane is free of leaking air when it's flying. And of course, the older, the more they leak. I said, wow, that is amazing, a brand new plane. He says, yeah, that's why you're constantly pumping air in and you're constantly letting a little air out, because the door might leak, the window might leak. You know, you got leaks everywhere. That plane, getting cold air up high, coming down low, is expanding all the time. So what happened to Payne Stewart? That's what happened. That is a very bad way to go. Cabin altitude, loss of pressurization up high. It's just an old airplane. Stay away from 25-year-old jets. You know, that's a great airplane. The Lear 30, I've never flown a Lear 35. I've never touched a Lear 35. But that's an old airplane, and it's got old systems, and it's 25-year-old systems. I don't know how many hours that plane might have. It might have had 8,000 hours. I don't know how many times that system's been serviced, the maintenance on it. I don't know anything about it. But these older airplanes, when you first buy them, here's the maintenance. As they get older, the maintenance gets worse and worse. And a lot of these 135 operations, they don't want to fix them. They piece them together cheap because they're trying to make money. Those operations, they make money, they lose money. They make money, they lose money. And the maintenance outrageous. So what happened to Payne Stewart? Cabin depressurization. It's a sad, heartbreaking story. It almost happened to Glenn one day. I had that mask around my neck. My other guy didn't. He wasn't required to. Either he wears it or I wear it. But I don't care who I'm with. I don't care. I put that mask around my neck. That mask is right here. That 3 seconds from going over here to grabbing it, it's called a quick donning mask. You just grab it and you go whoosh, psh. But that takes 3 seconds. This right here takes a half a second. And that half a second can mean the difference. Now, we didn't have a severe leak that day, but we had a leak because that light came on and we didn't fly around trying to find the leak. We put the mask on, we got down, and we went and diverted. That's the lesson. Above 25,000 feet, keep the mask around your neck. When you pre-flight that airplane, you check that oxygen bottle in the front, make sure it's in the green. And you got to look at a chart, depending upon temperature, to see where it really is in the green. Then you get inside the airplane, you check your mask, and you check the Capitan's mask, even if the Capitan don't check it. So, that's the lesson. Payne Stewart airplane crash, heartbreaking.